Hey everyone, James here with Rokoko, and I'm back with our Maya tutorial. This is actually an extension to our previous Maya tutorial, so if you haven't quite watched that video yet, I highly recommend that you do. Otherwise, in this video, I'm going to show you how to go through and use the graph editor to clean up your Smartsuit Pro motion data. So let's go ahead and get started. So in our previous tutorial, we've showed you how to apply your animation to your character inside of Maya, but now we're at the point where we want to edit that animation data. And in order to edit the animation data, you have to bake the animation to your character. And so let's go ahead and do that. So within your Human IK tab, you just want to make sure that your character is selected and the source is selected, which is going to be your animation. And we're going to click on this blue box and hit bake. And then you can either bake it to your skeleton or to your control rig. But for this particular case, we're going to click bake to control rig. So click that, and then you'll notice that the animation plays, and then you can see now the controls on your rig. And then you'll also notice at the bottom, you can notice all of the keyframes now, and you can actually edit and manipulate each of the frames one by one and change it. However, with mocap data, that can get quite extensive, especially if you have your animation that has hundreds of frames. So in order to really clean up your data and make it smooth, it's best to use the graph editor. And Maya makes it really easy for you to manipulate tons of frames by doing little work and not having to edit keyframes one by one. So let's go ahead and bring up our graph editor, which is actually already open, so we'll go ahead and drag this up here. If your graph editor isn't currently open, you can find it under Windows, Animation Editors, and then Graph Editor. And so this is the graph editor. You can actually just select in your panel. Let me go ahead and actually close our outliner. But you can actually select each of the controls, and then you'll notice that you can see the graph for that specific control, and you can see all of the axes, all of the translation axes, and also the rotation axes, and then you can notice any particular jitters or spikes, and you'll notice that in your animation as it's playing. I can play the animation. For this particular animation, we don't have anything too apparently wrong with it, but what we will focus on is the feet. We'll go ahead and just clean up some movement that's currently happening, because with this particular animation we want to make sure that the feet are grounded to the ground and aren't sliding around. So you'll notice like maybe some slight movements up and down and things like that. So let's go ahead and use the graph editor to clean that up. So we'll start with our left foot here. Let me go ahead and stop this, and you can actually scrub through your timeline here, so if you want to take a really good look at how animations are played, but let's pick out a spot that's kind of really apparent. So we notice right here that our feet are moving up and down, and if during this animation our feet are supposed to be planted firmly on the ground, we don't want that up and down movement. So what we can do is we have our left control ankle highlighted, and then we can go to our translate Y axis, and you'll notice here in the graph that this is where that big jump is happening. There's a pretty big spike. And so with this particular animation, what I'll first do is make it so that there isn't any movement in the Y axis, because there is no jumping in this animation, and the feet should just be flat on the ground. And so what I'll do is I'll take a particular section. So let's just go to our first keyframe, which is right over here, and you'll notice that there's this big spike just because our first two frames are for our T-pose, and then it jumps right into our animation. But for this case, what we'll go ahead and do is select our first keyframe, and then we'll go to it, and all you need to do is click on it, and you can manipulate this by middle mouse clicking it and dragging it up and down, or left or right. We're gonna go ahead and just leave it as is, and we're going to grab the number right here, 17.871. We're going to copy that number. And what we're going to do now is actually highlight all of our frames in here, and we're going to paste that number right into here. And so now all of the numbers are the same. And so now when you scrub through the animation, now you'll notice on the left foot it's not moving up and down like it was before. And that's essentially all you have to do. You don't have to save it. It'll automatically go ahead and keep those settings. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for our right foot, just so that it's currently in line. And I still have that number saved from the other one, and I want both of my feet to obviously be on the same level. So I'm going to just go ahead and highlight all of the keyframes again, and I'm going to paste it, and it's going to, same thing's going to happen. Now if you scrub through your animation, you'll notice that it's not moving up and down like it was previously, which is awesome. And then what we can also do is adjust the rotation. So if you notice on this foot, when we scrub through it a bit, you'll notice that there's some slight rotation that's not quite natural. That happens right around here. There's just a little too much rotation to the right, and so I want to fix that so that it's not that that extreme. And so we'll go ahead and go over here to our rotate, and it looks like that's happening in our x-axis, and I can tell that by pressing the E key on the keyboard, and these are all color coded. So red corresponds with the x-axis, Y corresponds with the green, and then Z is blue. So we notice that that particular rotation movement is happening on the x-axis, and you can actually see that here, since we do have it highlighted, that there's a bit of a dip that's happening, and so we want to fix that dip, and we want to essentially make it so that this whole line is, for the most part, pretty in line with with each keyframe from beginning to end. So we'll just go ahead and adjust these keyframes. What we can do is actually, since this is a pretty significant dip, but it kind of comes back up right around here, we can actually just get rid of this entire section. So if we click and drag and highlight pretty much all of these, and then click delete on our keyboard, it'll just automatically connect to the next one. And so it's actually pretty good. We can obviously make it better by adjusting each one individually if we want, but for the most part I'll kind of just leave it like this for now. But then you'll notice now that rotation isn't happening anymore, which makes it seem a bit more natural, and keep the foot in a bit more stoic stance, which is great. So that's one thing we could fix. And then you'll also notice as you scrub through the timeline that the feet are kind of moving, sliding just slightly, and so that's going to be in our translation right over here. And so it looks like, if we take a really good look at it, it's moving both in the X and the Z axis. So let's go ahead and let's jump over to our X axis and see what's happening. So you'll notice here that there's a little bit of a jump, and that's probably what is causing that sliding. And so we can go ahead and do the same thing that we did previously, and let's just go ahead and try and get this all lined up. I'm just going to go ahead and delete these keys, and then I'll drag this over just a little bit. And so now if we go ahead and scrub, that sliding is now only happening on the Z axis. So we can go over to the Z axis, and we notice the spikes in the graph right here, and we can go ahead and adjust that just so that I'm going to go ahead and just delete these two and move this just a bit. I don't want it to always be the straight line, because then it'll be an unnatural flow, but we do want to make sure that it looks good. So I'm just going to slightly adjust some of these curves so that it's a bit more cleaner. And then if I scrub through it again, now it looks a lot better. And that foot is actually keeping in place, which is awesome. Great. And basically that's what you want to do when you're cleaning the animations, is just kind of look at it, scrub through it, and then if you notice something happening, you can then edit it down to a particular axis on, you know, either the translate or the rotate, and then kind of just make it so that, you know, it's not as unnatural anymore. So I'm not going to go too far in depth into this because that's pretty much the fundamentals on really cleaning up the data. But obviously Maya has a ton of more other features that allow you to really kind of dig deep into cleaning your motion data. But for now, I think that's a great kind of starting point to allow you to really clean up your motion capture data. So once you get to this point and things are looking good, your next step is to just go ahead and export out your animation and your character and get it ready for, you know, game engine use. So you would just go ahead and do that by clicking on File, and you can export all or export the selection. You know, if you have your particular character and the animation selected, you would just click Export Selection and export it out into your desktop or folder. But that's pretty much the process. I hope that, you know, you guys learned basically how to use that tool. It's fairly easy, and you know, I look forward to seeing your guys' cleaned up animations in, you know, your future projects. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care.